Figure I'd dress the part. I should have did that, Devin. But you never know when a wild Michael Myers may show up. How you guys doing tonight? What's going on, Devin? What's going on, Chuck? What's going on, Ty? How you guys doing? Making sure I get all my things set up. Looks like we're good. We're going to give everybody a couple of minutes to pop in, and then we will start the movie. The hat, I got to get a new one. Right now, I'm working on trying to get a new mask. Primarily one of the silicone masks. But a hat is coming. Like, I used to have a hat when I did Freddy way back, when I did the makeup and liquid latex and toilet paper, but I haven't had that hat since, and it wasn't an accurate hat anyways. Now, pretty much that I'm putting together a Freddy Krueger costume. I got the glove, I got the sweater, gotta age up the sweater a bit, maybe tatter a little bit of the sleeves and the collar. But ultimately, I'm trying to grab up one of the silicone masks they sell. Been going through a lot of the pictures. I know the top one, Dark Ride Studios, I forget if it's Studios or Effects. I've messaged them. I've had no contact back, so I'm likely going with another option. So hopefully, ultimately, it turns out as well as my Michael Myers and Jason. Hopefully. So is it the sweater green and red? It is green and red. It looks black or darker because of how the lighting is, but it's a dark, dark green, which I like because it doesn't mess with my green screen effect, which is very reminiscent of the colors that he wears in part 3, where they're a lot darker, and Freddy vs. Jason, where they're a lot darker. I think on here, for part 1, they're a lot darker too. They don't become lighter, I think, until like part 4 and 5 in Freddy's Dead. But yeah, it's a dark red and green. Which, for those of you guys looking for my Trick or Treat Studios Halloween 78 pumpkin video, I had to re-record it today because apparently when I recorded it, I went to finally go edit it and realized that the audio wasn't there. Oh, excuse me. So I had to redo it. But that should be up this week. I mean, I like the black coat on Freddy, but I think the silhouette of him without it, with just the hat on, especially if you can get that posture with Robert Englund, like how he did it, where I think he said like he pretty much treated the glove as if it weighed like a ton and just like let it hang, and also very reminiscent of cowboys with their guns holstered and like how they would like draw. Get that out of the way there. There we go. All right. So we're gonna give this another, I'd say 3 minutes, and then we'll jump into the movie. So if you guys got your movies ready or you don't have them ready yet, be sure to have them ready because we're getting ready to jump into this. Range of Jump Rope Girls. I'm actually looking into something to sort of combine the Jump Rope Girls nursery rhyme with a scary trying to find a scarier version of the Freddy theme song, but it seems like the original one is likely the best way to go. And like I did with my Michael Myers costume, where I had the music playing through a Bluetooth speaker while I'm walking around trick or treating or conventions or anything like that, I'm going to be doing the same thing with that, but just as Freddy, which the silicone mask being able to at least emote with you, at least on a minimal basis, will add to the effect of that. To your Freddy voice, I'd end up throwing my voice out. That's something like if I get into character doing that, I gotta commit and I gotta have at least an entire bag of cough drops. Hey, what's going on, Jolly Popper Brothers? Thank you for the follow. Glad you're enjoying the stream, and I hope you got your movie ready so we can watch together. You got a real pedophile vibe to you. We gotta get into character. Oh, man. Hey, what's going on, Isabel? All right. Think we've pretty much waited enough. Hey, what's going on, horror boy? How you doing? Welcome. I'm about to say to my nightmare. Do I have a white van? No, I do not. Go watch Midsummer, you freak. I've actually have not seen that yet. I mean, I with movies that get a lot of hype like Midsummer, I'm usually disappointed in. Hereditary being a prime example. I watched Hereditary after hearing all of this stuff like, oh, it's so scary, it's terrifying, it gives you nightmares and all this. I watch it and it's like, this is nothing. I haven't been that disappointed in a movie since 1408. But is Midsummer actually good? Like, on its own basis, not whether it's scary or not, but does it actually have a fairly good story? Because, I mean, I heard a lot about it. I don't know what the fuck it's about. But I heard a lot about it, and it didn't really appeal to me. So what about Babadook? I thought Babadook could have been better, but ultimately it came off boring. I almost fell asleep on Babadook, to be completely honest. Like the concept and everything was there. I just didn't get that creep factor from it that I should have gotten from that movie. I think with me though, anything creep factor when I'm looking for that, I've had the misfortune of watching J horror movies, which are masters of that. So if I was just solely watching American made horror movies and I probably watched Babadook, it probably would have hit me a little bit harder. But the J horror genre and how they work with their ghosts, just it's it's above and beyond. It's crazy. Say yes, it's powerful. Really? I'm gonna take your recommendation there, Jolly. I'll end up checking it out. If I don't like it, I'll let you know. Nah, you're fine. What about It Follows? That's a fucking awesome movie. I love It Follows, which was like one of those movies again. I heard a little bit about, but I didn't end up watching until I saw a couple of clips of it from watching the dead meat video on it for the kill count. And I literally had to stop the video in the first 3 minutes because it looked so interesting. Stopped it, wanted to go back, watch it, which I think a couple of people in the chat, like Death and Ghosts, know about that. Like I watched the video, I started watching the video, then I watched the movie, then I went back to the video. It's a really good movie. I like how they did that, and I'd be all for a sequel if they ever did one. Look like pre-burned Freddy. Well, it's good I can go both ways with that. Imagine fan film wise. Oh man. All right. Well, what do you say we get started? Oh, wait a second. We can make him burnt Freddy. I got gasoline and a lighter. And meet me, Jane. You know what? No. Crazy Johnny Depp got his start in this film. And if I'm not mistaken, Brad Pitt got his start in the TV series. If I'm not mistaken. Said, do I know that actor, Ty? I don't even know how to pronounce the name. So chances are not. I don't want to be put on fire? Not yet. Catch me in the dead of winter when pretty much we got like 3 feet of snow outside and I still have to go to work. Then catch me with the gasoline. The Green Room? I don't think I've seen that. I saw the Green Inferno, but I didn't see the Green Room. Okay, Goran Visnik. Okay. Although I kind of feel like I just recited an incantation from the Necronomicon. Plato, Verata, Nicto. All right. So, like as I was saying, let's get started. Get your movies in, and we will begin. Here, let me pull up my media player. All right, and we will begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. You stalking?
Yep.
George Clooney was the other choice to play Johnny Depp's character. Oh, wasn't he on like Roseanne at this time, or is that like after this? You hear like Freddy breathing, almost sounds like he's having an orgasm while he's making the glove. Okay, so yeah, I was wearing it wrong. The sleeve goes over the glove. Okay. Am I Freddy now? Yeah, George Clooney was good as shit in Dust Till Dawn. So was Quentin Tarantino too, as an actor. Like I liked him in Dust Till Dawn too. From Dust Till Dawn. For some reason, I always leave that first word out. It's weird. Roseanne was 87. Okay. Yeah, that poster looks really good. I wouldn't mind getting that on like one of those like metal prints. And see Freddy at the bottom of the screen walking. Like really fucking with her head. No running in the hallway. Which I like his laugh on here because it's not as over the top as it gets in the other movies. Which I think the over the top laugh started in part two when he was on the bus. On here, it's like a sort of like a chuckle the way he does it. So I'm wondering, like, does anybody see them? And are they actually doing the nursery rhyme in real life? Or could that be a sign that the whole thing was a dream to begin with? Screw your pass. Have I ever killed someone? No. Yeah, Kruger is definitely badass in the first three. I'd say he's at his best in part two, which is crazy because it gets such a bad rap. But that pool scene alone in that entire film, I can't think of anything in the first three movies, in any of the movies that really top it. Especially when he slashes the one guy's face and the father comes out there with the shotgun. He's just staring him down and walking away. An actor that I feel like is severely underrated. I mean, I would have to think about that. Because there's like a ton of movies. What's going on, Anthrax? How you doing? Don't lie. You killed someone. I can see it in your eyes. Intent is one thing. What's up, Captain Woods? How you doing? I'm glad you enjoyed the channel, Captain Woods. Stick around. We got a lot more to come. You've got the body. I've got the brains. I remember that in the Will Smith song that he did. I think it was like a Nightmare on My Street. When I think about John Carpenter directing Friday the 13th, I doubt he would, to be completely honest. Not because he's above it or anything. I just think he's, for the most part, done with directing. I mean, I wouldn't mind him directing one. But I think I would rather John Carpenter, if he was going to direct anything, I would want him on screen. I love Freddy's Revenge. Freddy's Revenge is actually a better movie to me from a terror and horror standpoint than Nightmare 3. Nightmare 3 is very gimmicky and full of one liners. I mean, all of the movies have their one liners, but as a full out horror movie, did you actually fear Freddy more in part 3 or in part 2? Like, from just judging by how he acted, how he went about things, and how he taunted you. Like, I think, me personally, I was more afraid of him in part 2 than part 3. You never know, Ty. There might be a reason why Chillin hasn't been around. Never know. It was self-defense. You want John Carpenter to direct me? Yeah, of course. Like I think John Carpenter is would fit a lot better within the Scream world than he would in the Friday the 13th one. Only this time, if he was to do another Scream movie, I would never want to know who's under the mask. Like I would want them to stay constant because that should be the fear. Like you shouldn't, at least going forward, you shouldn't unmask Ghostface, and that terror in the characters after the story should always be prevalent to them. Like they should always be afraid that whoever they meet could be that person that's trying to kill them for the rest of their lives and leave a lasting effect. Yeah, Ghostface, I was this close to getting the figure of you. I was this close. It was like within reach, and someone bought it out from under me. Peter Jackson's Nightmare on Elm Street. That'd be crazy. Because, I mean, Peter Jackson does gore very well. So I could see him doing something along the lines of maybe Evil Dead. A Nightmare on Elm Street, I think he could do too. But it depends on where you're planning to go with the tone of the story. Although, odd choice, and I doubt he'd ever do it. Oh, you never know. But for a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, could you imagine Zack Snyder doing it? Like, I mean, maybe sort of co-directing with someone else, like him taking care of the visuals and someone else taking care of the story together. Because I can imagine Zack Snyder with some nightmare sequences that would be fucking insane. I'll take the credit in any name they want to give me, Ty, if that was to happen. Hey, what's going on, Hostel? How you doing? Hostel Graveyard. Welcome, my friend. Always enjoy seeing some new faces in the chat. Some new faces, new texts, new usernames, just new anything. Growing to the conversation. Tina. I'll eventually get one Ghostface. I mean, if that one popped up out of nowhere, I'll likely end up getting one at some point. Like, I'm mostly wanting the NECA one, but I know at some point in time, if I want to, I can get the McFarlane one. But I primarily want the NECA one. I love that scene where he's like pushing his head against. I guess it was what spandex that they put on the wall and stretched it out with the lighting. So, what nightmare director would I want for part 13? Honestly, I don't think, at least just judging movie by movie merits, I don't know if I would want any of them really. Like the closest that I felt like had the tone that a Friday the 13th should have is Wes Craven, and I think whoever the director is for part two. Remember that scene used to scare me when I was a kid. Not scare me, but like had that unsettling feeling with his arms stretched out. Like just the smile and everything alone. Like everything about him in this movie is has that creep factor to him that he loses as the movies go on. There's certain scenes where he gains it back, but then it just they kind of pull the rug out from under themselves in like later sequels. I don't know, Ty, because he's doing Army of the Dead on Netflix. So he's already back within the horror genre. I just don't know how much a studio would be willing to pay him to do a Friday the 13th movie. Like how little the budget may be and how much of his take would be from it. Like him directing, granted, what happened in his personal life, that's years removed now. He's already back directing. Yeah, I agree, Ty. I agree. Yeah, don't mind them killing Jason because he had to die to eventually become undead. Excellent plot twist. Just not in that fashion. It was rendered. He got punked. Well, you figure Hostile, the events that happened to Jason to lead up to him dying, he took a hell of a lot of damage over the course of three movies and still kept coming. The machete to that by the time Tommy killed him, You would have figured if he was a living being, all the blood loss and head injuries that he had, the neck injury from being hung, all of that, like, it was amazing that he was even doing what he was doing to the degree that he was doing it. Hey, what's going on? Wide to knife. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce that with the T in there. How you doing? What's going on, Machete Slasher? How are you doing? What's the hardest costume to get on? Batman. Batman is the hardest because you're talking about getting the bodysuit on and then the rubber like gauntlets and everything. You have to zip up because they're so tight on the muscles. You have to put like strength into it, and then I can't put it on alone. All my other costumes I could put on alone. Batman, I need help with. Yeah, and the machete to the shoulder. I mean, wouldn't they be able to see? I guess maybe that's from all the movies that are TV shows that I watch, like CSI and all that shit. But wouldn't they see like, yeah, like they're talking about the wounds, like the wounds that she was inflicted with from Freddy's glove wouldn't be consistent and consistent with Rod's blade. Oh, nice, nice machete. How was that? Was that I'd imagine that would have been a hell of an experience. What was my first cosplay? Like when I've actually intended on cosplaying under the name cosplay would have been Joker. Costume wise, I've been getting into costumes all my life, but actual cosplay would be, I believe, Joker. I mean, I would love that, Devin, if they used my idea to reboot the series and bring it back to the original first movie and go from there. I would love that idea because it would be different. It hands the torch over to a new actor while keeping the character the same and gives you a plausible reason why it should happen. Will they do it? Probably not. Or if they do it, it's not going to be anything resembling my idea. What was the costume? The first costume I ever wore? I mean, if we're going back to kids, I can't remember that. I do remember I did a makeshift Jason one year. When I really got into an intricate costume, I did Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where I had the contacts, the vampire brow, and all that, the teeth, all of that. Oh, nice machete. Yeah, I know she does. The girl actress that plays Tina, I forget her name too, but I know she's on a lot of horror channels, like doing interviews. Scout Taylor Compton as Tina. I think she could do that. Don't fall asleep immediately. Falls asleep. Pretty much. Hey, what's going on, Baller? How you doing? Have I ever voice acted? No. Although the opportunity has never come up, so I mean, I'd be down for it, but I've never done it. I've had some people in chat ask me about doing creepy pastas before. Yeah, Devin, it'd be damn near impossible to survive Freddy. Yeah, I was like, I popped in there to see what was going on with it, interact with some people. Because, I mean, I get on other people's live streams so rarely. And I think in the last week, since I did the Halloween series, I got on like two or three of them. Because I was even on the We Watched the Movie live stream too. Oh, there's the scene there. Screw your pass. Nancy. No running in the hallway. You know, I like showing other horror channels love. Like dropping in there, interacting with some people, dropping a like, and stuff like that. So it was weird because I thought I was subscribed to them, but I wasn't. So I wanted to make sure that I jumped on there too and I hit the subscribe button for them. Is there any other actor to portray Freddy? Who would I pick? I mean, I've been still hard up on the one guy that played him in the one fan film. But if we're going with like probably actors right now, uh, who would I want? I'm not sure. Because I know everyone's obvious choice was like Kevin Bacon, but I feel like he's too old for it. Because I would want someone in at least their mid 20s to do it. But I would want them to have either they sound like Robert and they can do his mannerisms, or they look like Robert and they can still do his mannerisms. Because the voice you can always edit and change it to get as close to that deep voice that Robert has. But if you don't look right, you're never going to capture people into the movie. It's going to take them right back out. It's like his taunting on here is just like, it's basic, but it's effective. What would I do if it became illegal to watch horror movies? Probably go to jail. So you started playing Friday the 13th again today. I've been meaning to play it more. It's hard to get into it without like at least a good couple of people to play with to keep the game fun. Lords of Chaos. Why does that sound familiar? I don't think I heard about that hostel. Well, like, what's that about? Like, who's in it? Remake Freddy looked awful. Yes, he did. Remake Freddy looked absolutely terrible, but I still liked the actor. I liked how he portrayed Freddy. I thought the writing could have been a lot better. William Defoe as Freddy. I mean, if we're going any age actor, like across the board, aside from Robert Englund, I would still want Jeremy Irons. I would love to see Jeremy Irons as Freddy. Like, just because it's such an odd choice and how he can play a villain and how he has done villains in the past, I think it would throw a lot of people off in a good way. Yeah, Billy Bob Thornton as Freddy. When I heard of that rumor before, and I was completely against it when I first heard it. Like I thought they got the casting right when they casted Jackie Earl Haley. The makeup was just terrible, but I thought he was right for the role. Oh yeah, Machete. I've been there. Before I ended up finding my shirt on eBay, that's where I looked, and I looked at all the styles and everything because my problem was I would get a green shirt that was the right color, my size, but the shirt came down too low until I found a shirt that came right down at the right spot. I forget how much I paid for it, but I do know I did alter it a bit. I think it was like a Sears or J.C. Penney shirt, like really old vintage. It's like a Mayhem biopic, really. So is that like when she was like in the middle of getting ready to dream and like sleep and dreaming? Like Freddy was like in that between time to where he could affect you, but you couldn't see him or notice him there. Like mostly for like characters like Freddy, I look at them like Batman and like stuff like that. Like you don't need a big name to play the character. Like you can get a relative nobody that can essentially give you what you need as far as an acting prowess. Maybe they can be a spitting image of Robert Englund, but they have no acting credits, major acting credits under their titles. Like, and the movie's still gonna make money because it's Freddy Krueger. They're not watching it for the actor; they're watching it for the character. Unless it's Robert Englund, and then they're watching it for both. Same thing with Pinhead in Hellraiser Judgment. The guy that played Pinhead on there was phenomenal. Like, I would have loved to have had Doug Bradley, but if I could have anybody else, he'd be it. What is the most powerful weapon in every franchise? I mean, judging by the way they show like Jason's machete and its feats, I would imagine that. Freddy's glove, of course. Oh shit, Paris. That's the way you make an entrance. Like what? How you doing, Paris? Oh shit. Did I get your messages tonight? I don't think I have. Let me double check. Let me check my messages real quick. Holy shit. I got like a ton of notifications. Alright, where's my messages at? Ooh, I see. I see. Oh, I see what you're doing there, Paris. I see exactly what you're doing. Yeah, it looks real nice. Molesting party. Bring it all on. Say Freddy is the dirtiest horror character, but I'm probably wrong. I would raise you probably Otis from House of a Thousand Corpses, and like that entire series. He's a nasty bastard. Yeah, it could be a good choice there, graveyard, hostel. Not to call it graveyard. Sometimes I just question you people. Isabel. Shh. Join us. Join us. Was it ASMR? You got to pace yourself, Paris. There's some new people around. You don't want to molest everybody all at once. You got to take your time. Savor every moment with every single person. There are so many orifices to explore, especially with the glove. So it's annoying. As long as they're over 18 and alive. You might be asking too much, my friend. We can promise one or the other. We can't give you both. We can't guarantee it. So, what did you miss? We went through pretty much all the Halloween movies. Um, and we are currently 40 minutes into A Nightmare on Elm Street. I see you've been busy with costumes as of late. But did you ever end up going to your con? And more importantly, did you get any more Ash pictures for your Ash versus Evil Dead costume? Dario Argento for Friday the 13th, Part 13. I mean, his style isn't exactly within the same realm or tone that I would want, but I wouldn't mind him. Annoying noise? You mean this noise? Ree! How would I do Freddy versus Jason too? I mean, ultimately, I would probably keep it because Freddy being pulled out of the dream world in Crystal Lake and dying there, having him now trapped in Crystal Lake with Jason on a constant, like, constantly fighting each other. Or basically having where you could have them competing. Not even so much competing. I know I would want Freddy trapped in Crystal Lake because of what happened at the end of Freddy versus Jason. And ultimately, Freddy somehow breaking loose and being able to go wherever he wants. The way I would have the movie end, Jason thinking that he killed Freddy and Freddy being able to haunt every Elm Street in the world, not just in Springwood. Ah, okay. I see you, Paris. I was wondering where you were for the Halloween series, especially when we got to the later sequels. Get a chalkboard? Is making you angry. I have no idea what you're talking about. Part 9 Jason versus Thorn Michael. I'd probably go with Part 9 Jason because even if Thorn Michael was to pull and destroy Jason's body, his heart would ultimately end up hypnotizing him. The question would be, would the Thorn curse supersede the Voorhees curse? Yeah, deep breaths, Isabel. You go inhale and then lose your shit. Oh, trust me, Paris, I've been there. Like when I got home from the con I went to, I was done. Like I think I took off like a day or two from streaming just to recuperate. Oh, why is it pissing you off, Paris? Like we have an Elm Street in my hometown. We used to scare a kid about Freddy. Hated the scary movies. Ironically, his name was Jason. Let's just say he was severely special. I was in high school and stupid. I mean, it's like Freddy said in Freddy's Dead. Every town has an Elm Street. When I lived in Baltimore, they had an Elm. I think we lived on Elm Avenue, but we pretty much considered it Elm Street. Part 3 Jason versus Thorn Michael. Thorn Michael. He would probably destroy Part 3 Jason. Unless for some reason Jason can get a decapitating headshot, I don't see Jason surviving that encounter. Yeah, I've had that, Paris. With like certain costume pieces, knowing that I need to upgrade or while I'm wearing it, possibly repair a certain part of it. It's it can get touchy, especially when I was thinking of replacing my old Batman cape and I wanted a new one. I like the way my old Batman cape was on the mask, or with the mask and the suit on and everything, but there was just something off about it that I did not like, but I was extremely afraid to change it until I changed it, and then it turned out for the better. They would have smushed heads, Machete. Like flattened heads. Like you're all children, especially you, Devin. Well, it takes one to know one. I don't think it stops the apocalypse, Hostile. I think it's supposed to be something else, like sacrificing for like a good harvest or some shit like that. I don't think it was necessarily them stopping the apocalypse. It was essentially appeasing the gods. Like, let's say, like you owned a farm or something, and nothing was growing. You had a drought, all of that. Then you start, I guess, worshiping a god or something. Someone comes to you, tells you to worship a god. You do it. You make an offering, and then they give you a bountiful harvest. The thing with Michael and the way the thorn works, if I remember right, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the same concept, except the thorn curse is meant to sacrifice a bloodline of whatever is supposed to be part of this cult or whatever. And with the sacrificing of the bloodline, the rest of the cult flourishes because of it. That's true, Machete. So you would figure Freddy would have probably left her alone there. Because Freddy would know that she was hooked up to all those machines. And like while he wants people to know about him, he's being extremely reckless. But I guess it could also be because he feels like nothing can hurt him at this point. Now those three cuts, they're oddly close together. So you obviously know he didn't put the three blades together and do it like that. He would have had to have cut each individual cut there. Jason versus Pennywise. Well, considering that Jason, aside from his line and Jason Goes to Hell, can't speak or hasn't spoken since he was a child, and Pennywise is, I guess, according to the last movie, susceptible to harsh language. So I would probably go with Pennywise. Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. How would I end it? Ultimately, Ash would end up winning. But probably barely. Like, he would have had to have gone through more hell than he's ever gone through. Ultimately, I wouldn't mind Ash using the Necronomicon to open another portal to try to send them either back or forward through time, both Freddy and Jason, getting sucked in himself and actually going into hell. And then continuing the series from there with Ash stuck in hell with the Necronomicon. Possibly the Necronomicon talking like it did in Ash versus the Evil Dead. And the Necronomicon wanting out of hell. So the Necronomicon itself is helping Ash. But when the Necronomicon went to hell, all the pages got ripped out of it. So now Ash has to travel across hell to recollect all of the pages from both horror characters that have died in the past and dark ones that may be stuck in hell. And the longer Ash stays in there, the more demonic he ends up becoming. Like going for, like trying to switch things up a little bit. I mean, if we were going to do after Ash versus the Evil Dead, like after that show, we would have to kind of rewrite the story to begin with to reflect the Ash versus the Evil Dead timeline. So we would have to do it before and probably retcon Ash versus the Evil Dead. Or some parts of it. That's true, Devin, but also Pennywise doesn't need you to be afraid of him to hurt you. He needs it to grow more powerful, but he can still hurt you as is in a head up fight. The way Pennywise would probably combat Jason is using the image of Pamela against him. And likely Pamela would also, she would have some kind of effect on Jason that Jason would fear her, especially if Pennywise has Pamela Voorhees yelling at Jason, chastising Jason, kind of like how Freddy did with Pamela in Freddy versus Jason. You saw how Jason reacted to that. So imagine Pennywise doing it the same way, but with far more power. Like, I think Pennywise would be able to use that against Jason. Jason would believe that his machete could kill Pennywise, but I don't think Jason would attack Pennywise in the image of Pamela. Yeah, I don't, that's the only part I hate with that. Like, not only part, but I very, very, very much take issue, Machete, with them having Jason afraid of water. That makes absolutely no sense. Hey, what's going on, Ethan? How you doing? Welcome, my friend. Like, ultimately, if we did it, Paris, after the events of Ash versus the Evil Dead, I could see Springwood turning into Freddy's territory, where he has, like, they take the idea of the, I think the one rejected Freddy versus Jason script with the Fred heads, taking that cult idea to where Freddy is actually probably no longer in the dream world. He's an immortal outside of the dream world, controlling his territory in Springwood. Or he has evolved at this point where he can come in and out of the dreams as will, like at will. Jason would still have his territory, but Crystal Lake would probably be dried up at this point, and the lake would be filled with like a graveyard of bodies. He would be sort of like the outcast of all the evil in the world, where even like all the territories that it, think of it as a Logan, a comic book version of Old Man Logan with horror characters. And Jason's that one guy that still is alone and nobody wants to venture in his woods. No horror characters, no anything. And eventually Freddy will make his way, probably going after Ash, because Ash is now trying to change something in history. Like, he's trying to find the Necronomicon to go back in time, stop this future from happening, and he has to go to each territory to collect pages of the book that have been scattered throughout the world. And Freddy wants to keep it as is. Like, he's happy with the world as is. And he ultimately chases Ash into Camp Crystal Lake. That's kind of the area where I would go with it. Uber Jason would, because for some reason that version of Jason does not care about Pamela, according to the comics. That was supposed to be the implication for all the New Line films, except for Freddy versus Jason, that Jason had evolved past his love for Pamela. He's just pure evil and wants to kill, which makes no sense. Not sure what they were playing in part three, Hostel. I'd have to, once we put that on, we'd have to check it out, get a glimpse of it. So you're doing great, although I burnt my finger cooking my family's dinner. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, my friend. Hopefully you got some ointment or something on. It's not bad and like peeling skin or anything. They show a couple of other clips past with part 4, 5, and 6 too, Machete. Yeah, definitely you'd have to change the name of the cult. If anything, I wouldn't name them at all. It's just Freddy's followers. Like, he's just rolling over them. Yeah, I mean, because I look at it, Paris, like, if I would want it to continue, I would want it to continue as a TV show. And going to each territory lends itself in an episodic fashion. So it would definitely give us at least a good 2 seasons of Ash trying to collect everything. And Jason being the finale. Like, we all know, like, some of those pages are in Crystal Lake, but it's like, you know what? We'll go there last. Would Jason kill Elias? If he doesn't know who Elias is, if we're going with the Elias is his father angle, and he was killed when he was a kid, then I would probably say he would. But it's hard to say unless we know for sure what their histories are. Now, I think Ranger, like, it sounds cool to have a lake of blood, but personally, I would have the lake dried up because I think a lake of blood would be too on the nose for something like that. And I think it would mean that there's still people coming there to fill that lake with blood. I would still have bodies dating all the way back to prior movies that have since decayed and are stuck in the dried up parts of the lake. Like, it's completely dried out. There's no water anywhere. It hasn't rained in decades, type shit. And like Jason is just there. Nobody has come to the camp ever. Like, not since the end happened. In 2 seasons of Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, I would love it. Yes, I mean, you could have it like that with Freddy being the last, but the only problem with that is Freddy is, as Heath Ledger Joker has said, he's a schemer. He schemes things. So, in order to keep the plot going and keeping the story relevant, you would have to have Freddy knowing what Ash is doing and then trying to actively stop Ash. Maybe never leaving Springwood, but sending lesser villains after Ash. Or, like, pretty much he's keeping tabs on Ash, like spies and stuff like that. And Ash is going to Haddonfield, getting a page from there, going to Texas, getting a page from there, and like going all around. And then once, like, it would have to be like in the last couple of episodes where Freddy really starts stepping in himself. Friday the 13th, Crazy Ralph lives. I don't know, he could have. But then again, he was always riding around Crystal Lake, so he might not have had any time to have kids. Oh, yeah, I mean, pretty much the way you could have it is Chucky at that point has been blown into pieces, and his head, only the one head that Andy had, is all that remains. And because of the end coming, the Necronomicon and the Dark Ones have fucked with magic so much that Chucky's voodoo doesn't work properly. So then he can't replicate himself into other dolls anymore, or at least to that degree. Like the only way he can do it is he can put himself into a new body, but it's only in the old school sense. And his thing, he could be an ally of Ash because he wants to go back to the way things were, to where he could kill people, stalk people, get the surprise on them as a doll killer. And then also because the end could have possibly have killed Andy and took that victory from him. So you could also have that. But absolutely though, Chucky God tier bias. Andy is one of the bodies in the lake. No, I wouldn't have Andy as a victim of Jason. I would more want the Deadites to take Andy. And I would want Andy to be a possessed Deadite coming after Chucky and Ash. It's sort of taking all the ideas and flipping them around in an unexpected way to see how these characters would react to it. Plus, it would add to the whole thing that Chucky wants to be Ash's ally in order to bring things back to the way they were. So that way he can, in turn, become the one that kills Andy eventually. What about Tommy Jarvis and Laurie? I would have Laurie definitely dead at this point. Laurie would be dead. Tommy, I guess you could have him alive, maybe leading some kind of resistance or something like that. Maybe, but I wouldn't want to make it like John Connor kind of shit. I wouldn't want to make it to that extent. Can you imagine the banter pairs between those two talking? Oh, there's the tongue in the phone scene. Which, if I remember right, didn't she want to keep the phone after like filming this? Which I guess it ultimately did kill her. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Paris. It'd be exactly like Sam in Evil Dead Regeneration. It's like, what the fuck did he do to Glenn to have that much fucking blood pop out? Say she wanted a stuffed animal. I could have swore I heard somewhere that she wanted the phone. And like Wes Craven thought it was hilarious, but I think he said no. Fucking use his glove like a blender, pretty much. Like if I had any kind of filmmaking expertise, I would probably try to turn that whole idea into a fan film itself. But I wouldn't even know where to begin to actually start doing anything like that. I could probably write a script for it, or at least to get it start writing an outline of a story for it. But I don't know if I would be able to shoot it. Yeah, she does. So I know she's definitely one of the ones hard up to try to come back to the series, and I would love to see that. Even at her age now, I would fucking love it. What was she going to do with the phone? Things. Things we can only dream of. Oh yeah, Heather's definitely juicy. Lord of the Anal Rings. If only I could do commentaries on that. Oh wait a minute, I could because I'm not showing it, but it'd be kind of awkward. Like, up, she's spreading eagle, and it's in there. Indeed, Paris. Indeed. I mean, stories I like. Like, eventually, I want to do something on an original idea for like sort of like my own IP and just go from there. I guess you could say it's like its own like creepy pasta kind of thing because that's a lot of what those are. But with something like that, I want it to be organic. I want to take my time on it. Make Heather part of Camp Juicy, baby. Oh yeah, she's invited. See, this is why I think like my theory kind of applies to it. Like she's setting all these traps up while she's awake, or at least we can assume that she's awake. And then once shit starts going down, I'm thinking everything that happens to Freddy is actually Nancy's mother. Like, what if Nancy set her mother on fire? One juicy Heather or one moisty Linda Hamilton? I mean, Linda Hamilton, especially even in Terminator 2. I haven't seen Dark Fate yet, but just the Terminator 2 version, she was a badass to be reckoned with. Like Jamie Lee Curtis's Halloween 2018 character had nothing on her. Now, as far as who I want to give the blade to, I'd be Heather. Yeah, Laurie's very much overrated. I can agree with that full heartedly. The way they had her in 2018, the only part, like, I liked when she disappeared after Michael threw her off the balcony. That was fine. We started going overboard when she came out of the shadows after Michael got shot in the cheek, like Michael did to her in the first Halloween when he stabbed her or cut her shoulder. That was a little bit much. And like, I honestly think she should have died in the last movie. If she doesn't die in this next movie, I don't know what the fuck they're thinking. What if I had a Terminator hunting me? I would probably die. Especially if it's a Terminator hunting me like you did in part one. Yeah, I can agree with that. Nancy and Sarah. No, I wouldn't say Chris from part three just because mentally she couldn't handle it. Like with her completely snapping, that kind of took her out of the running for that for me. Where Nancy and Sarah became hardened by their experience. Like if anybody from the Friday the 13th series deserves to be mentioned with Sarah Connor and Nancy Thompson, it should be Jenny Field. Just because of her having being stalked by a killer, having the mindset to be able to use his mother's image against him and would have landed the killing shot. And it didn't look like she went crazy afterwards. She might have had a hallucination of Jason grabbing her out of the window, but she still survived and she still looked like she was mentally stable. just like, just imagine Freddy from like fucking all the way on the other side of the boiler room. It's like Krueger, what? What if she had to deal with Jason from part six? She would die. There's not really any character outside of Tina Shepard that can deal with Jason from part six. Oh yeah, Alice from 4 and 5. You gotta throw her in there. She's the quintessential like character that comes from such obscurity and being so meek to being a badass character by the end of 5. Like she's not only pretty much to the point where like she's not afraid of Freddy. She's hunting him down. Yeah, I could deal with that, Liz Paris. I was trying to think if there could have been anybody else. Like maybe Kirsty from Hellraiser, but I don't necessarily see her as a badass. She's again mostly a schemer. I imagine that would be fucking terrifying, Hostile. Kelly from Ash vs. Evil Dead. Yeah, I would definitely throw her. You gotta throw Kelly in there. Now imagine all of this happening, but as Nancy's mother. But like she's so sleep deprived, Freddy is putting his image over Nancy's mother. Because I mean, when you take the concept of the micro naps from the remake and apply it to this, and like pretty much the image of Nancy's mother's covered up with Freddy, and Freddy's speaking to her in his voice to try to further the illusion. What if like she is really responsible his for her mother's death? Which would explain why, if you take away the burning Freddy that's on Nancy's mother in the end of the movie, when she sees the body and the body's smoking and Freddy's not there, she actually set her mother on fire and her mother's dead because of what she did. I mean, who's to say that she set on fire here and pretty much she goes up the steps, falls back down the steps, and eventually gets out? Maybe somehow she put out the fire. One would think in the basement with all the shit that they got in the suburbs, they got a fire extinguisher somewhere. And she goes back to her room because she is drunk. I mean, granted, this probably be something that'll sober her the fuck up. But it's hard to say the chain of events if you look at it from that standpoint that it is Marge the entire time. What Freddy is allowing Nancy to see and what is happening can be blurred very much. Because then it's like, how did Freddy get around all of them and get upstairs to the bedroom, anyways? Because I mean, if he's that much on fire, they would have noticed Freddy coming out of the basement, or at least hiding out, waiting for them to go by. And then there's like Freddy was only on top of Marge for literal seconds before they threw the blanket on her, and now she's already burned to a crisp, like complete bones. Although that part is freaky where she puts the hand up, sinking into the bed. It's like, I'm cool. I'll see you guys. But also, just to flip it on the other side, what if Nancy set all the traps up while she was awake and she fell asleep and never woke back up, and Nancy was actually asleep the entire time, but it was still Marge going through the traps, like Nancy leading Marge through the traps on purpose? Because obviously there has to be something here where she's still dreaming, and in part 3 her father still doesn't believe her. And after seeing your ex-wife sink into a bed as a skeleton and raising her hand up and disappearing, that would make me believe some shit. Hey, what's going on, Play? How you doing? See, I want to see Freddy like that again. I want to see him angry. Yeah, I'll let you know, Baller. I mean, right now it's still been more on PC than I have been on Xbox. But if I ever get on there and start playing, especially with some of the other people I normally play with, I'll definitely hit you up. See, and that part would be where I would pick up my movie from. Like once Freddy did that, Freddy essentially gave her all of his power by her turning the back his her back on him. When he went to attack her, he's now trapped inside of her and he cannot get out. She is now the guardian of the dreamscape, so to speak. She has all of Freddy's powers, but she can wake up, come to the living world, I guess you could say. And like pretty much if you start it now, like I had in my movie idea, where she is so like her body's becoming ravaged by holding and containing Freddy for so long. And the stress of it, of what could happen if he's ever released, could take its toll. And that's ultimately what leads to her death and releasing Freddy again. Freddy turned Marge into a blow up doll. Yep, right here he did. Do you hope we get a reboot to a Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th? Depending on the reboot. Now, as most of the people on my channel, they know I'm a huge proponent of how Blumhouse rebooted everything with Halloween, taking everything after the first Halloween and scrapping it, making effectively the last Halloween movie we got a new Halloween 2. But ultimately, it's just a matter of time, like before they just reboot the entire thing altogether. I would do it the same way that Blumhouse did it with the Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. With Friday the 13th, though, it would be tricky because with Friday the 13th, you have to watch where you reboot it from because if you go too far back, you're not getting Hockey Mask Jason. If you go too far forward, then you are after Manhattan, which was a terrible idea and just completely shit on the legacy. The best places to probably reboot the Friday the 13th series is if you're going with Living Jason, you would have to reboot it after part 3, making a new part 4. If you're going to reboot into a different kind of supernatural Jason, then you would have to do it after part 4 or 5. Now, personally, I did a sequel video a while back rebooting it after part 7. That was my part 6 or 7. Either one. It was like interchangeable because he starts in the lake either or. And that was something I did like 2 years ago, I believe. That is still my go-to idea of how I would reboot Friday the 13th. Nightmare on Elm Street, I did a video on that, I think, what was it, like 2, 3 months ago? I would probably still do it in that sense where I reboot it all the way back to the end of part 1 and go from there. Which, if you haven't checked out those videos play, be sure to check them out and let me know what you think of them. Yeah, I've heard that before, Hostel. Like, in some places, it is considered a great honor and privilege to get stigmata. So you like a film set after Freddy vs. Jason, not a continuation, just takes place after and having the continuity of everything on both Freddy and Jason. I would too, but ultimately, I think the only way we're going to get Freddy vs. Jason done right is we have to forget all the New Line films and everything that New Line fucked up with Jason. And what Ronnie Yu did in that movie too, for that matter. But I think if we reboot Friday the 13th, because I think the reboot of Friday the 13th is already there. You just have to give Vincente DeSanti the credit and make his version of Ghost Jason canon. That's all you have to do. And then you can go from there, because his movie takes place after part 8. And at least that's what he's told me. Once like you have that, you get rid of all the New Line stuff and go from there. You build up Ghost Jason. You evolve the character more and more and more. That's your new Jason. Freddy, I think you kind of have to do my reboot idea to get him back. So get him back on track to being a scary character and go from there. And then have those two characters intersect. Not because one is using the other, but because there is a legitimate organic reason to why they're crossing paths and why they disagree with each other. And I think that would be there. I don't think it would be hard to do, but I would want to see the characters as scary characters going against each other and not the slapstick Looney Tunes versions of what we got. And then we can build the continuity after that, like after they've already dealt with each other, and then go after that. If we were to just do it now based on what we got in the last Freddy versus Jason, I mean, the way they treat Jason is ultimately the way Fox treated the X-Men movies. There's no real solid continuity from movie to movie. Like, that continuity left when they left Paramount. But I think it would be interesting to see how Jason would go on after that. Because Jason was essentially the hero in that movie. He was an anti-hero, but he was still a hero nonetheless. He was on the one on the side of the good guys fighting against Freddy. Even though the comic still has him kill the survivors. But I think if they were going to redo those movies, give us Ghost Jason, give us the Freddy from my idea, and go from there, and have both characters retain the fear factor that they deserve, ultimately we could have a really good movie to where one is not working for the good guys, one is not actively a supervillain, and all the fans stay happy because it keeps the original continuities of both, except for Freddy. I mean, Freddy, you do get rid of a lot, everything 2 and up. So you get rid of a lot of that continuity, but you do get the original concept of Freddy Krueger. Yeah, like, because I mean, Freddy's design, I would want, because I think you've seen my video, Paris, where I talked about the reboot idea that I would have for a Nightmare on Elm Street. I would want to get his makeup or whatever actor that plays the younger version of Freddy as he's like killing people, he gets younger and younger. Um, I would want his makeup to mimic that of Robert Englund's from the original, as close as we can get it, with still retaining Robert's shape of his face, as close as we can get that too. And then we go from there. Ghost Jason, I would pretty much keep the same look he already has. Maybe a little bit higher quality as far as like instead of the silicone hood they use, maybe put a little bit more money behind the makeup effects on it to try to make it look unique. Because right now I could buy that hood, which is great, but I mean it's always good to have that, make your Jason as unique as possible. The only issue I've ever had with the Ghost Jason costume is the way the hands, and it's a problem with all silicone hands that you get, like silicone gloves that you get for like your costumes, is there doesn't have a natural look when you're grabbing something like a knife. It looks like a glove, like flat out. It just does. So it kind of gives me like a weird, cringy look at it. But overall, Jason's look is good. Like even if they did put a big budget behind it and didn't do anything, even the gloves, they didn't do anything to Jason's look, I'd be happy with it. Hell, I was happy with the Disappear music video. So I was perfectly fine with all that. But I would want the Ghost Jason look against a Freddy with the look from part one going against each other. My all time favorite looks that I would love to see fight is the look from Friday the 13th part 7 against Freddy from part 3. That would be the like looks I would want as a fan. Like completely fan out over it. The strongest Jason besides Uber Jason, if we're not counting Savini Jason. Because as I said before, Savini Jason, we don't know what his abilities are because he's never shown up in any other medium aside from the video games. We can assume what he can do, but we can't be sure. Any other version, I would probably say part 6 is the strongest version, or at least the deadliest version. Freddy versus Jason, physically, that character is the physically strongest of all of them. Being able to like lift fucking things that were dropped on him in the dream world, throwing people across cornfields and all that shit, punching Freddy like 100 yards, and like fucking that kind of very slapstick kind of feats of strength. But deadliest, I think, is still part 6 Jason. Overall, he's the I would likely want to go against Freddy versus Jason before I want to go against part 6 Jason. That's just my opinion. Yeah, I wouldn't mind pretty much keeping some of the scratches and everything. Especially if you have Ghost Jason go against Freddy again, and you get new scratch marks on the Ghost Jason mask. I think ultimately that looked really good. But all right, guys, that's gonna do it for me for the night. I'm gonna wrap this up and probably go watch some more movies and grab me something to eat. I'm glad you guys stuck around and chilled with me as we watched The Nightmare on Elm Street. Do I think there will be another Jason movie after the lawsuit ends? Yeah, definitely. There definitely will. Um, Just depends on if they can make a deal or if both Sean and Victor end up dying before they make a deal and their next of kin can make a deal. But eventually, it will come. But alright, I'm going to wrap this up and I will see you guys tomorrow for A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. Thank all you guys for sticking around, and as always, I am JG Dark, and thanks for watching.